Hello, viewers of iRadio. My name is Yara Jackding, and welcome to this roundtable discussion as we are going to be discussing about the International Peace Day. This day was established by the UN General Assembly to promote peace through 24 hours of nonviolence and also laying down arms and ceasefire. This day is marked also to promote peace across the world. This year is going to be marked under the theme Cultivating a Culture of Peace. And just to reflect back, I want you to be part of this discussion and asking you, what can we do together to build a stronger and more peaceful South Sudan? I want you to be part of this discussion as we take you through this roundtable discussion. I'm honored to be joined by Honorable Pierre Philip Mike, and also we have Asar Mohamud. So just to start our discussion, welcome to iRadio, and we are honored to have you today.
Thank you for inviting us.
All right, and just to start on this insightful discussion, just to understand what does International Peace Day means for South Sudan, especially for a country that has been through couples of war, to trying to foster a journey towards peace. Undersecretary.
Yeah, thank you very much. The International Day of Peace means a lot to the people of South Sudan because peace is the enabler that every South Sudanese is looking for. It's an opportunity for South Sudanese to take a day off and reflect on where we are coming from and how we can go forward together, and also apportioning responsibility for building peace as a collective responsibility that cannot be transferred to anybody else. It's really about reminding the people of South Sudan that we are all in this. If we need it, we have to do something to have it and enjoy it, and create that environment for development and economic growth of our country.
All right, and also Asar, IOM and the International Organization of Migration has been doing a lot on issues of migration. What does this day actually mean? Having interacted with a lot of communities in South Sudan and beyond, what does this day mean as peace?
So for IOM, it means whatever the it means to the beneficiaries and the communities in South Sudan. Mm-hmm. As the Undersecretary highlighted, that it is something that is being yearned, wanted by all community members in South Sudan. Mm-hmm. And for us, it is important for giving a chance to South Sudan and its people to move forward and have a more developed, more nurtured society, to have peace. Mm-hmm. Because without peace, there could be no stability, there could be no development. For us, this is the main pillar on which you build stability and development.
All right, just to pick up on that, building stability and development. And Undersecretary, what specific initiative at the Ministry of Peace Building has been able to implement actually currently to promote peace in South Sudan? And how can the public support some of these efforts that the ministry is doing?
Yes, we are working with our partners and also as government to encourage people to have dialogue among themselves, because we believe that without communication between all aggrieved parties, we cannot have a peaceful South Sudan. So we are promoting dialogue, and also tied to that is encouraging the issues of livelihood and the resilience building, especially to young people, economic empowerment to women, because we know these factors are important. The moment communities are stable and are able to earn a living, it means then they can be in peace. So moving forward, those are our key activities moving forward. But then we are also looking at promoting social justice, the issues of disseminating the peace agreement, because the axis that we have is an instrument that the people of South Sudan need to own. So we are also working on that, and really just making sure that we have a conversation about what the South Sudan that we want, so that we can grow it together and develop it together.
And having mentioned some of the activities that you are engaging, how are you be able to ensure that some of these things are implemented at the grassroots level, considering that South Sudan has been experiencing pockets of violence here and there? So how do you ensure as the ministry that this goes to the grassroots level?
We have our state ministries in all the 10 states and 3 administrative areas. And also of late, we have come up with our approach to peace building of convergence approach, converge on a hotspot, and through different projects and programs like the RSRTF, we have area-based programs. We have in Tonj, we have in Jonglei. Now we are soon launching on the 9th of October, launching a Southern Unity area-based program. We also have another area-based program in the southern part of Central Equatoria. So through those activities, services and community dialogues are trickling down to the people. Last month I was in Greater Tonj North, Tonj South, and I saw how this engagement is really working. There is a radio FM. If you have heard about the Concoach project, you know, our social peace building workers are going to cattle camps. We are engaging cattle camp youth. We are engaging women. We are building community centers and youth centers and things like that. So all what we are doing as a Ministry of Peace Building does not only stay here. And as we speak, there are other pockets of conflict that we are addressing together with IOM. We are very keen on the Ngok and the Twitch conflict. We have engaged with the Apuk and Marialbai community, and we are preparing to have a conversation with Pakam and the Lonjang community. So we also had an engagement in Tambura between the Zande and Balanda. So we are actually across the Republic of South Sudan doing this work and trying to stabilize our community.
All right. Thank you. And now to come to Hassar. What role do you think the international organization play in fostering peace, and what are some of the successful examples you have observed here in South Sudan in regards to peace?
I think what is important here to understand that South Sudan is a nascent country. It's a new country, and it's taking its root and it's forming its governance structures. But as we go along, there are certain prerequisites that needs to be put in place, and we, along with the Ministry of Peace Building and other stakeholders, both at the state level and at the community level, have put in a program that is integrated in nature, which looks and engage youth, a bulge of the population at this point of time in South Sudan. Then we are working with the communities on customary law, because as you know that in the absence of formal judiciary being able to address all the judicial needs of communities, there has to be a mechanism where issues and challenges can be resolved based on the existing laws which are aligned with international laws. Along to go with it, because of course communities in South Sudan has facing displacement for different reasons, but majorly because of conflict. So they are in need of livelihood and sustained livelihood. So IOM and Peace Building Ministry have worked on programs, as the Undersecretary said, RSRTF, Peace Building Fund. Under these programs, we are providing livelihood and access to infrastructure. On top of it, one of the key issues is access to land. So this is another very important subject that IOM works with the partners on the ground, with the authorities, to ensure housing, land, property access, along with access to basic services. So these are key inputs and pillars that IOM and international community is supporting to forge a good foundation for peace in this country.
All right, and you have mentioned very important point, and especially on some of the key issues that South Sudan is trying to work on it, like the customary law, the land issue, and maybe now just to understand like how IOM is helping the community of South Sudan, because the issue of land has been a big problem, and every day there is a conflict within the land issue. So how is IOM actually ensuring that some of these policies or your advice is contributing to peaceful way of handling land issues?
Okay, so for the land issues, there is a two-pronged strategy. So the first is at the national level. We work with the line ministry on the policies and law and frameworks that are in place in South Sudan for accessing the land and how land registration and the rest of the law work. Then we work with the state line ministries, and the communities themselves. I can give you a very good example how it works is WOW in Western Baraghazal, where our housing, land and property teams have worked very closely with the state and city authorities to ensure that people who wanted to reintegrate into the city, that they have access to land, which is basically a community-led process where community has to accept, and there is no connotations that will lead to any kind of unjust or unfair distribution of land. Then it leads to a process where they are registered in the government books and registry is done, and then they are allowed to settle. This guarantees their access to land, but at the same time of the retention of the land for the purpose that has been given. So that's one. At the same time, people know that we have been working because there are hotspots, as the Undersecretary said. Malakal is another hotspot. Our teams are working on the same principles in Malakal as well. Same goes in Benchu. So we are working across all these areas. And one large success of these efforts is also in Central Equatoria, where we are implementing the second phase of our RSRTF program, which has all these components that I mentioned earlier. That means engagement with youth, customary law, livelihood and infrastructure to be presented as package. And we have seen that there is an uptake of IDPs returning to those areas because they can find some peace. And I think that's a very successful example that can be replicated across South Sudan.
All right, thank you for that. Undersecretary, as we speak right now, the peace agreement is at the stage of being presented at the Parliament to be endorsed by the lawmakers for the extension for another 2 years period. So what does this actually mean for peace in the country? As we mark the International Peace Day, looking at this is the road peace agreement that is meant to bring peace, lasting peace to the people of South Sudan. But now this is the second time it's being extended from the initial time that it was agreed upon. So what does this mean actually for the people of South Sudan, this extension, and for the peace to exist?
Good question. Actually, peace is not written in books, and peace is not, the one that is being extended, because South Sudanese can still be peaceful without either extension or with the election or with no election. So the peace we are talking about is not the peace that's only tied to positions, like who takes what, but we are talking to the peace that encompasses everybody across the country. I know that the extension of the peace agreement is something that many people have welcomed and people have some reservations about. But also it is important for the people of South Sudan to look at the implications. How do you carry out a free, fair, and credible election with the current economic situation that we have in the country? With the issues of access, because really we don't want to have this election to be like, those days when I was young. I think that's why I did not vote until when I voted for referendum, because when South Sudan was in war, although there were elections in Sudan, we were not voting. And so what one would want to see in an independent South Sudan is a collective participation. Everybody should be able to participate. We know that the extension by all the signatories to the agreement, who are our leaders, is something that they have studied and seen as a genuine move, because there is nobody who are the signatory to the agreement who sees that we can go for election. So in my view, we should not tie building social cohesion among ourselves to the peace agreement. Because, it's like a Bible or a Quran. We have a Bible as Christians, but we still do what we do. So we cannot say because the Bible says do not do that, so we are doing it 100%. The point is, the extension is something that many people are welcome and many people are feeling like they really wanted to vote. But the most important thing in my view is the environment ready for election? Because it also carries a lot of logistics. It carries a lot of working on access. There are people who are being affected by floods. There are IDPs and refugees who are not able to come, and all that logistical arrangement, I think, need to happen, and other aspects. Constitution. I mean, it's my belief that the Constitution will be the one to determine which type of government comes after the election. And so if the Constitution is not ready, then having election, I think it will not match. So I just want to call upon the people of South Sudan that people should be patient, in my view. Let the extension not be a recipe for conflict, but let the people continue to build social cohesion among themselves. Because the broader peace, not the peace for the political elite, really is what we are looking for. The broader peace at the community level that will attract markets, that will attract social services, is the peace that we are thinking about.
All right, Undersecretary, like yesterday when RJMEC, that is the peace partners, extended the period when it was voted by majority, like you said, there were mixed reaction. But many people will also argue that the current leadership has been there, but nothing has changed. Like you said, there could be peace within the people. No, it doesn't have to come from the leaders. But also there will be argument that the leaders are the ones that direct the country. So how do you assure the South Sudanese that this is not going to be another period where they are going to endure? If I am not happy, that means I don't have peace, right? You agree with me?
Within yourself?
Yeah,
Yes.
exactly. If I'm not happy within myself, or if I'm lacking food, that means I'm not peaceful because there's something that I'm lacking. So how do you assure, as the Minister and the Secretary, of Peace Building, how do you assure the citizens that this period will not bring another period of them not being feeling, like we're not going to exist?
One belief as a South Sudanese, that I believe you are, is that it's my view that our leaders have a good heart. The same heart they had to fight for independence for us. They are the same people. They have the same heart. I don't think there is anybody among our leaders who is wishing curses on the people of South Sudan. It's my belief that, sometimes as a parent, you have to take a decision that you think the outcome will be better than what people think. There are a lot of critical decisions that our leaders have taken. And I want to believe that they still have that thinking of taking South Sudan forward. For example, I think there was a time that some of our leaders were told, don't go for referendum and we will make you happy. You buy you whatever you want. Here is the money. And they refused the money. And they chose referendum. Poor as we were, they refused the money for the sake of the people. It is the same leaders. And I don't think they have any ill feeling against the people of South Sudan. What I believe is that sometimes as a leader, you are pressed by some circumstances beyond. Because really, if we are not able to get our salaries for over 9 months, and with what has happened with the pipeline, all of us know in Khartoum, we cannot get the money, with how our economy is going. And then the government itself need to put money for the logistics of elections. I mean, even if it is Christmas time, if your son is sick and you need to buy a Christmas dress, you will choose, right? You take the kid to the hospital or you buy a Christmas dress to go to church. So I think still that they are the same leaders, and there is none of them, I believe, who have ill feeling against the people. I want to believe that there is a circumstance beyond their own making that has made the extension to be pronounced.
All right. Thank you for that. This year's International Peace Day is being marked under the theme Cultivating a Culture of Peace. How can South Sudanese cultivate a culture of peace?
I think that's a very important point, and indeed it has to be South Sudanese who has to cultivate. And of course the international community has been willingly supporting the foundation for peace and a sustainable peace. it requires both the government and communities to come together, and government to deliver on the wishes and whims of its people. I think what is important is that a government having economic issues because of what is happening in North needs to look and prioritize the needs of its people on the ground and their hopes. Without that, no international aid or support can sustain that effort. And I think when we work with the communities on the ground, we see this hope, this wish from the people of South Sudan, and they continue to engage and work towards the peaceful resolution both of their issues with their neighbors, but at the same time for the larger South Sudan. For its sustainment, there has to be an equitable distribution of resources. There has to be more investment on infrastructure. There has to be more investment in health sector, education, access to basic services. That will provide the right platform for peace. But again, as I said, it depends on the government and its people.
Under Secretary, how can we cultivate the culture of peace in South Sudan?
Yeah, cultures of peace are values that promote peace. That I believe every South Sudanese community have those values. Values like forgiveness, values like saying sorry, values of seeing another person the same like the way you see yourself. Those are the values of that will promote peace, because we have seen there are different communities that have such values. We have learned about the Ubuntu philosophy, that you are because I am. There is nobody who is useless. I mean, if I'm one in this office and there is nobody else, it will not be an office. So there are also other philosophies. Gandhi also spoke about the value of non-violence, Christian values of love, of forgiveness. So those are the cultures of peace that we need to grow. I know in some of our cultures in South Sudan, some of our cultures promote violence. There are cultures that believe that when you are so aggressive, the boy or the girl who beats other boys, other girls, is the one who goes to school. Is the one who stays home. The children who cry, who are weak, are the one who go to school. So you are glorified for being somebody who has power to beat others. That's not a culture of peace. And when we do that, we contradict. People say we want to peace, and then they promote those cultures. Even when it comes to cattle raiding, I'm told that women have been pushing men to go for cattle raiding. If a man does not go in the village for cattle raiding, and the other guys who went brought cattle, then the man who did not go, women would say is weak. But when the other men bring the cattle that they have looted, women will be hululating and glorifying cattle wrestling. So that's not a culture of peace. So there are little things, even how we address each other, our neighbors. There are women who will say, my child, don't play with those children, they're not good. That's not a culture of peace. Really building social cohesion is what promotes peace. Saying sorry, forgiveness. And in this world, you cannot win all. You cannot say you don't want to say sorry because you want to win every battle. And as biology has taught us, for us to be alive, we must give out carbon dioxide to be able to receive oxygen. So life is give and take. But there is this culture in South Sudan that I'm everything, I'm untouchable. So I must win. That's not a culture of peace. Saying sorry, asking for forgiveness, trying to reach out, calming down, that's important. And those are the cultures of peace that we are talking about.
All right. Thank you for that. And Asar, earlier you mentioned a lot of initiatives that IOM is involved in regards to peace building. Maybe just to, especially on issues of migration and the displacements of communities that you've been dealing with. So how has the situation been like, and especially trying to foster for that peaceful and trying to understand the communities there?
I think IOM has always been involved with the displaced population in providing them not only access to basic services during emergencies, but also finding durable solutions. And as I mentioned earlier, Wow Town in itself is one good example where we have taken steps with the state government, with the national government, and communities for provision of land for people to settle. But it's not just the land, it's engagement of youth. It's providing livelihood solutions. It's also providing infrastructure where they can feel safe. But at the same time, what the Undersecretary said earlier, promoting values of peace and coexistence. And I think that's where IOM has always worked with the national ministries, stakeholders, and especially at the state government side. We are working in Bentiu, in Malakal, with all stakeholders to do so. I can give you a recent example where a lot of South Sudanese are returning from Sudan. Right? IOM is involved in their safe and dignified return to their locations of what they choose to. Either they want to settle there, they have families, or the locations wherever they feel safe. So IOM has always been involved both in South Sudan and globally on that. And we believe that not only South Sudanese, but the migrants who are working in South Sudan, who have taken refuge in South Sudan, are also treated with peace and dignity to ensure that they exist safely with the neighbors that they are existing at this point of time in South Sudan. And what is also important is to respect the freedom and democratic rights of each and every individual in this country. So that's what IOM has been doing in promoting peace and solutions for the displaced population.
Have you at any given point experienced, especially with the issues of immigrants, people that are not South Sudanese by nationalities, like have instances where you dealt with cases where these people were not actually being treated nicely and IOM had to intervene and maybe, for the sake of peace?
So I would say, and I have said it on the record before as well, when the Sudan crisis happened, the government of South Sudan has, in a very good gesture of neighbor, has accepted all returning from Sudan, both the South Sudanese and Sudanese and other third country nationals with open arms. Of course, there is an incident here and there, right? That comes from lack of understanding and any other personal or individual interest. But we have not seen a government authorized or a government led policy where this has been inflicted on people who are passing by or taking refuge in South Sudan. So this is a case. You will hear in newspaper, in other programs that the refugees that are living in South Sudan would have incidents with their neighbors now and then. But I think we need to understand that there are resources that are constrained, and there is now and then issues related to that. But it's also important to understand that a lot of South Sudanese have been hosted by their neighbors and the global community across the world peacefully in their countries. So we need to reciprocate the same gesture to people taking refuge in South Sudan.
All right, thank you for that. Undersecretary, maybe just looking back, what are some of the achievements that the Ministry of Peace Building has ensured that South Sudanese have a peaceful coexistence among communities? What are some of your achievements like so far?
Yes, number one, when the ministry was established by the Revitalized Peace Agreement, we focused on building a legal framework. As we speak, we have a peace building policy document in South Sudan that we are using together with our partners to implement peace activities. We also have our strategic framework that really talks about what can fix South Sudan in terms of stabilizing it and bringing peace. We have also developed a policy document with the support of IOM on communication strategy. Because what we were seeing and reading on social media or international media is painting a very negative and very glimpse picture of South Sudan. People like to talk very negative about South Sudan. There is nothing good. So we have drafted that document. We have it. I think it is in the final stages. We have also revitalized the hate speech document. Hate speech is something that is dividing us more. But then there is a policy that was passed by the parliament in 2013. But now we have come up with a roadmap in terms of disseminating that policy, that it is a crime for you to engage in hate speech, stereotyping people, communities, and so on. So that's what we are doing at the policy level. And also we have engaged with the international community. As we speak, we have submitted our peace building priorities to the Peace Building Commission in New York. We have engaged in New York on this, and this year in April, we received a huge delegation from New York that came, and we went to Malakal, and I'm happy that IOM did a lot of good job in terms of laying down that ground. And so also the portfolio for Peace Building Fund has increased, because we get some funding from the United Nations Secretary General for Peace Building Fund that has reached about over $30 million now in support to many projects. The project that IOM was talking about land and property, is a peace building project funded from New York. So we have reached out with this. Here on ground in South Sudan, we are building this partnership, as I mentioned before, trying to work with partners to create a platform for dialogue between communities. And then also we were able to carry on what we call the executive retreat. When these governments were formed, we found that in many states, government people were working as political parties, but not as a government. We are IO, we are IG, and so on. But then with the support of their partners, we went and sat together with the governor, deputy governor, ministers, and parliament, and say, the spirit of the agreement is that you have to work together. You can talk about your political issues, political party issues in your secretariat, but then the government is to deliver service to the people of South Sudan. We have not stopped there. We have reached out to Traditional Leadership Authority. For the first time, we brought them for a conference of 5 days last year, and we have a list, of the resolution, what they feel that we are also taking up, and I'm happy that IOM is working on that customary law. We are actually trying to come up with those 3 regional customary centers, like it used to be during even the British time. So this is what we are doing. We are doing a lot together with our partners, the different peace building activities that we are doing, and really key is to make sure that we create a platform for dialogue. Now, moving forward, one big piece that we are working on is the transitional justice, Chapter 5 of our peace agreement. We are grateful that the CTRH and CRA was passed 2 weeks ago. And now, as a Ministry of Peace Building, we are looking at restorative justice system using the South Sudanese conflict mechanisms for resolving our conflict. Because this is what we have seen working in many countries like Rwanda and Liberia. We are doing a number of activities, and we are happy that we are getting a lot of traction from different communities, the states where we have gone. People have come to us that we want a dialogue. We have gone for dialogues, and we have worked with our partners to say that the dialogue cannot end in itself. You have to look at post-dialogue services. You have to address the stressors. You have to look at resilience and so on. So those are the number of things we are working on across the country.
And I believe some of those things, or all of them, will bring peace.
That's why we are sleeping in our homes and up to now. Thank you.
Okay, and
Yes.
looking at the flip side of it, we have challenges across every sector in what we do. So what are some of the challenges that we actually been facing in trying to bring peace to the communities, to the people of South Sudan, and IOM being engaged in South Sudan also? What are some of these challenges that you've encountered that made it really, you think that are an obstacle to having peace?
I think South Sudan faced a number of challenges. One, I mentioned, it's a nascent country. The governance structures are taking its time to be entrenched.
Mm-hmm.
Policies and laws to be passed and then trickle down to the state and the county level. But what is important is the prioritization. There are development needs, there are emergency needs, and there are needs of individuals and hopes. What needs to be done is that the government of South Sudan prioritizing these needs, and peace being the number one, because as we said, the foundation of development is peace, and putting its resources to sustain efforts that have been supported by the international community to showcase its seriousness in taking this forward. So far, the international community has supported South Sudan with a lot of resources. Unfortunately, we do not see the sustainment of these efforts. We understand at this point of time there are a lot of economic constraints with South Sudan, and international community continues to support, but there will be an end. But at the same time, let me also say, everything does not require resources. Sometimes it is more the attitudes and willingness on the ground between the two communities, two individuals, two neighbors, is what takes them on a path of sustained peace. But they have to be provided with an environment that they can access land, they can access to law and basic services in a peaceful manner. And I think the people of South Sudan are very, very hardworking. If they are provided by the right environment, they can take care of themselves. They don't need to stand in lines to receive aid. So that's what the government's responsibility of South Sudan is, and the responsibility of other governments and everywhere else. That's the expectation of its people.
Yes.
So that's what I will say.
And the secretary.
Yeah, peace is very expensive than war. This is what we are learning. I think war is very cheap, but bringing peace, when especially rebuilding the social fabric of a society that is destroyed during the war, it's very expensive. It's very, very expensive. So one of our challenges really is resources. If we had the resources we need, I think we would have gone far in terms of creating the environment for dialogue, for communities, addressing the push factors for violence among communities. And so I think resource is our major challenge. And then also of late we have challenge with the floods, access, because we have to reach people to build peace. Access is another problem, but really I think the major one is financial resources has been our major challenge. And we have really learned that peace is more expensive than war. War is very cheap. I think that's why every war ends up in peace. You see that? War is just, war has no rank. I mean, you do it, at the end of it, it is peace. So peace is very expensive. So this our, and for us to build peace, we need a lot of resources. Like in all our 10 states ministries of peace building and the ones in 3 administrative area, they all, every day, communities come to them and say that we want a dialogue. But they don't have the money. They don't have the resources. They don't have the logistics they need. One of the community in Greater Jonglei was telling me, they came and they said, we need tent and chairs because we have been killing ourselves, but we want to do blood compensation. enough is enough. We went to Bentiu last year. There was a community there. They have been fighting, and the community said they have decided now to make peace because the cows are finished. The water has taken all the cows, they have died, so nobody should go again for any violence because they have nothing now to give. So you look in the eyes of the community and you see that, if you have the resources to help these people, they are ready to solve their problem. Our major problem is resources.
Under Secretary, you said the major problem we have is resources. So does that mean that if South Sudan is never to have enough resources, that we will never have sustainable peace?
No, we are saying with or without resources, we can still have peace. But if we don't have resources to address the push factor, I've gone to a cattle camp where the young people were. I asked them, why are you carrying gun and doing cattle theft? They said, my friend, if you don't do it, you are coming from Juba. We need money like you, and we need to marry. We need wives. We need a car like you. So if we don't do it, we will not get the cows we need. You see, so it's all about resources. But then, what do they need? They need alternative livelihood scheme. They need vocational training with the startup kids. They need to use their milk to milk in a proper way and have access to market with the refrigeration. And then they will not kill anybody. They will not go and rob anybody. So it's about addressing the stressors, what is pushing them to fight. And that need a lot of money.
Sorry, just to take you back on this. We are talking about peace, and South Sudan has gone through a lot of consequent wars to where we are today. And Asar actually mentioned that, it is not only on resources. The reason why some of these examples that you mentioned, that they want to marry, they need resources, they go to war, is because you mentioned the livelihood. But who is to provide for that livelihood, for that stability, for them to have the services necessary? Because they don't have the necessary services. So that's why they look for alternative options. And that is why they have to cattle raid, they have to do ABCD. So how can this, what do you think, can the government do to ensure that it is not only that we need to say resources have to be availed for us to do ABCD. Some things don't need resources.
Of course.
Getting the guns from people, does it need resources?
It does.
How much?
It needs a lot of money. It's a very...
Collecting it or doing other activities that engage the community, rather, forget about the money, but engaging the community in trying to bring peace and bring them together, like reconciliation.
That's what we are doing. Exactly. Not everything will need money, but for you to have sustainable development and have the young people have alternative livelihood skill, you really need money to provide those things. And then you need to build a value chain. If it is in the cattle camp, for example, you need to train them to be able to milk, because they already have a raw material. You need to provide them with refrigeration, right? Vehicles where they can take this milk, add value to it, and you need to have access to market. Really, if you do this, even the fishing, how much fish do we lose, between the market and the fishing ground? If we have the money to help the fishermen, say here in Jongle, to fish enough and be able to bring the fresh fish in the refrigeration to the hotels in Juba. I mean, in South Sudan, say in Juba, we are drinking powdered milk by mistake. Just because we have not built that base, that value chain. And that needs resources, by the way. Even in Pibor, if you want to connect those communities, you need feeder road. Yes, you are saying the government need to do this. But if you are here in 2012 and 2013, you will agree with me that before we went to this war, life was good. I used to work in education, and every teacher was able to buy a mattress and a senke with their salary. The least paid person in South Sudan was getting about $75, and this was a cleaner before we went to war in 2013 December. And so after going to war, things turned around. And you will agree with me that the same leaders who were there in those good days are the same leaders today, right? So the war has just destroyed our economy. That's my view. If we did not go to war, I don't know where South Sudan. We were ranked as one of the fastest growing city in the world. Juba, that time.
Which year was that?
Yeah?
Which year was that?
2012 or 2013. In 2013, before December, there was this economic forum that brought different companies who would do production here. So by now, we would have industries, and these young people would be in that. And that's why we are saying that the ripple effect of violence. If we did not go to violence in December, South Sudan would not be what it is today. And that's why now we have learned from that. We need to move forward and say that for us to reap all these good things we are dreaming about, let us build peace and say no to war and never go to war again.
All right, we have a few minutes before we finish our discussion. I see the timer is ending. Maybe just to have how can we encourage culture of dialogue and also reconciliation among different communities to promote peace, just as we finish?
For us, it's not how. We're already doing it. And there is a greater effort that is required. And as I said, it requires dialogue at all levels. We hear about dialogue between the different political parties going on in Nairobi. That needs to trickle down. And then communities themselves need to have a dialogue on how they can sustain themselves in the new country of South Sudan.
Okay.
They have the freedom, they are independent. Now how to sustain that? That's the most important thing. I also want to highlight, building peace is not one day in a year that we celebrate and it finishes. No. It's a constant effort. A constant effort that cannot be sustained by just investment from international community. It has to be sustained by local communities, by state actors, and overall the legislature and the politics on top. So for the dialogue to continue, which is happening between not only IOM but other partners are involved, and we're working with the Minister of Peace Building. You see, Minister of Peace Building and its partners, international community, can provide that platform, but sustainment maybe has to come from another line ministry or a government side, because I'm sure the peace building ministry will not work on the fishery or will not work on the forestry or on the roads. That has to be provided by someone else. So it has to be a whole of government effort and a whole of international community supporting it, which has been there. It is now for the government to deliver, right? And that's what the people of South Sudan and its citizens want. So I think that's where we are going. There are good efforts that has been made, but it needs to be sustained and delivered now. Beyond talks, beyond promises, and action on the ground, because that's what the communities want.
And the Secretary?
I mean, it's exactly what we are doing. You know, one, encouraging dialogue among people. Number two, trying to put efforts together with our partners and say, bring people together and have a day to like a celebration of International Day of Peace, for people to have some reflection, you know, and say, oh, there is peace. There are people who say there is no peace in South Sudan. Then I was asking them, Juba and Khartoum, where is peace? Oh, Juba. I say, oh, okay. So not Khartoum, right? Yeah. So you know, peace is something that we don't touch, and sometimes we have also in the back of our mind as people of South Sudan, we need to accept that we have some level of peace. I mean, you cannot compare Juba today to Khartoum, right? But South Sudanese still believe that there is nothing happening. Oh man. Even in heaven, there was something, right? That's why Lucifer was thrown down. So something is happening everywhere. I mean, incidences. In the United States, a big bureaucracy. Now Trump is missed it twice on his ear. And again, I don't know what the other 45 years old man wanted to do. The violence of going to a school and shooting all the children. Come on. Attacking people in the church. wow. I mean, in Europe, in America, conflict are everywhere. In the region, the people of South Sudan need to accept that something is happening. I mean, it cannot be there is no peace. There is no peace in this country, and we sleep in our... And how do we want peace to be felt? And here is something we have learned. The responsibility of building peace can never be transferred to another person. In South Sudan, we feel like somebody should bring peace. From where? There is no day that a big aircraft will land in Juba and say, Ya Jama, peace has landed. We must build peace. Build peace in the little things. First of all, let us accept we are South Sudanese. And we are here to stay. Nobody's going anywhere. We must accept one another. We must accept this is our country. We must speak good about it. We must build the love for this country, South Sudan. And again, we are not a small country. We are bigger than Kenya, Rwanda, Burundi put together. Every resources, anything you can dream about is here in South Sudan. But other people want us to feel like we are the worst in the world. No, we are not. The good thing, Mr. Google is teaching us a lot of good things. If you want to learn about countries, go on Google and ask the questions, and you get the answers. Anyway, we, as a people of South Sudan, one thing we need to believe is that we must plant peace to harvest peace. Nobody is planting it for us. If you want a school or a clinic in your community, be peaceful. If you think you get it through fighting, we are sorry, because it will not come. Development can only grow on a peaceful ground. Progress, economic development can only grow on a peaceful ground, not on a warrior fighting ground. So it's a collective responsibility, and we have also seen that there is a ripple effect of violence. A ripple effect. When you start it, you think you are doing it between you and somebody. Guess what? It's going to affect your children, your mother, your father, your aunt, your economy. The person who shot the first gun in December 2013, I wish he did not do it. I wish it did not happen. We would not be where we are today. So just that one AK-47 have taken our people to the refugee camps, pushed our economy to zero. And we have become like, even, to a situation that we would not be. So the ripple effect of violence, and that's why we say nobody should encourage violence in the Republic of South Sudan because of the ripple effect. So, and our really effort as a Minister of Peace Building is creating this platform for people to talk, to engage and say, and say no to violence and embrace peace and social cohesion.
So as we wind up our discussion, South Sudanese youth make up the majority of the population. And social media is one of the platforms where young people are. So how can young people use social media in a positive way to spread peace in the country?
Yeah, the young people, I'm a teacher by profession, and the only way we can read who you are, since we don't stay in your house, is through your child. The behavior the child does in class will tell me this is how things might be happening at home. And so we as parents need to engage with our children. A child is a mirror of the parent. If you want to know the parent, you know them through the children. If the children are talking, what they are talking, that means, okay. Anyway, that's my training as a teacher. I only know you through your child, because so as communities of South Sudan, as parents, we should engage with our children and instill in their mind the importance of social cohesion, and not attacking each other on social media just because you have internet, you're at home. They should also know about the repercussion. And nobody is immune to anything in South Sudan, because, for example, if I am a general And my children, because their father, who is me, is a general undersecretary, do whatever they do. Am I sure that the children will become generals also? And I'm not a stone. There is time in the morning and time in the evening. I will go. But then these children, without me as their father, who is a general, what type of life are they going to live? Because the worst thing in life is the ink and the paper. Whatever you write, whether you have written it on social media, you thought you were joking, somebody somewhere has read it and has taken note of it, and maybe has saved it. And so this will not end today. Maybe it will be in the archive. So we need to do a good job as parents in engaging our children to be people who are working together. And we should also know to transfer our fight to our children. You know, as a community, oh, don't greet those people, they are not good. Don't go play with them, they are not good, they did this. No, let's give a new future to our children. So we need to engage as parents the children on those social media insults and stereotyping, and make sure that they are talking about something that brings them together.
Okay, Asar. Yeah.
So I don't use social media myself, so I don't think so I'm the right person. But let me say about the youth, because for us, youth is the main focus for our peace building efforts. And for us, engaging with the youth, because this is a day and age where technology is available in your palm of your hand, and social media and information is available. What is important is that youth, children, kids, everyone is educated how to use responsibly. It's a resource.
Yeah.
It can create more peaceful platforms for more dialogue.
Yeah.
Where we don't have to sit around, but we can be on our phones and still talking about peace.
Yeah.
It can create hate. We have seen incidences around the world where certain wrong information provided and, spread like a wildfire, and there has been consequences.
Yeah.
We have recently seen incidences in Europe. What is also important is to provide the youth the guidance and the direction and the right resources to do and live their life the way they want to, but then still having access to basic services and to growth. I see now and then that there are so many people who are making so much money by their presence on social media.
Yeah.
They're promoting brands, they're promoting content, whatever that is. And I think this is something that we have traditionally not looked as livelihood.
Yeah.
And it could be an avenue for livelihood.
Yeah.
But if you think that you have not gone to school, or you have no, I'm not saying degree, but you need to have a certain side of education to create the right content which would have the applicability of acceptance.
Yeah.
I think there's a lot of opportunity. Now the world has come into your palm and you can do a lot. And social media, if used responsibly, can make wonders. Perhaps we don't need to get everyone together. We can be wherever in the world we want to be, and we can still talk to each other. So I think social media can play a role, but at the same time, it's a double-edged sword. So we need to be a bit careful how we use it.
All right. Maybe your last message before I come to the Undersecretary, as we are finishing your last
Sustainment of peace effort needs to continue on daily basis, 365 days of the year, not only one day, right? And partners can do that much. We all, as I said, it requires a whole of government, whole of international community, and the communities themselves to come together to sustain such an effort. So I wish South Sudan a more peaceful year ahead of it. Thank you.
Undersecretary, your last message.
Yeah, just to say this year's International Day of Celebration is really important, and it is a call on the people of South Sudan to reflect on nurturing a culture of peace. It's not just about talking about it, but really about doing it, about reflecting and seeing what is really important for us. Second is that building peace is a collective responsibility. It's a responsibility you cannot give to your neighbor and say, let them do it on your behalf. It takes all of us, everybody, all South Sudanese must participate in building peace in one way or the other, and every day, and building those values, starting with our communities, our children at home, our neighbors, and that will give us the country that we need. Third is to invite everyone to the celebration of International Day of Peace. That will be this Saturday on the 21st of September at Nyokren Cultural Center. So we are inviting everybody to come and listen. We will have a number of traditional dances. We will have a number of speeches from the senior government officials, from our donors, from the UN country team and all the NGOs. It is going to be a colorful day. Let all South Sudanese come. Let us celebrate at least one day for peace and listen to the messages of our leaders, of our partners on our role of building peace in South Sudan.
All right, thank you so much, Undersecretary Pierre Philip Michael and also Asar Muhammad. Thank you so much for joining us for this table discussion. As you have heard, peace is a collective responsibility, and it takes you and I to build a peaceful South Sudan and a peaceful society. Want to leave you there and engage with us. Let us know how the International Peace Day is going to be on your side, and also don't forget to join the celebration for 24 hours at least to have a peaceful society, and not only one day. We should have a peaceful South Sudan. I leave you there. My name is Yara Jackning. Do have a great time.